I tell you, when it comes to like handyman work and stuff like that out here, I mean, we had it was probably 3 or 4 years ago. We helped this guy, and I say helped as in we hired him. He was starting his business with his son, and it was a handyman business, and it was a little bit more than a handyman. It was he would actually go all the way up into remodeling and whatever. And he'd do small tasks, and then he'd do big ones, and he did some pretty major tasks for us. But ever since like right before COVID and through COVID and now, you can't get a hold of anybody for anything. I mean, they are, and especially if you're any good, you can't get them out here for anything because they're so busy. And, I mean, it's an awesome thing, especially for that industry, because you look at plumbers, electricians, carpenters, handymen. I mean, dude, it's to get them out here is one thing, and then chances are they're already booked 4, 5, 6 months. I mean, you might be 6, 7 months out from having them come out to do any type of job for you.
Yeah. Oh, I was telling you when we got the so I put a TV, a small TV up in the garage so I could, you know, watch TV or, have music on and stuff when I'm in the garage working out or just doing whatever. And everything. So but I needed an outlet because I wanted to put the TV up high and I wanted an outlet right behind it because I hate seeing cords run along walls. Like that drives me nuts. And so it's like, all right, let me find an electrician to come out here and install an electrical outlet. And I think I've told this story before on here, but I probably went through 6 or 7 electricians. One, some didn't even respond back to me when I reached out to them and said, "Hey, here's what I need. You know, how much can you do it, and how much are you going to charge to do it?" Some didn't even respond back to me, and then a couple others responded back, and they were like, How far away is it from your electrical panel?" I was like, "It's literally like 2 feet from the electrical panel." And one guy was like, "I normally charge like, $200 to do that." He's like, "But it's not even worth my time to come out there and do that." And I was just like, "Damn, bro, like $200? Like, if you got $200 that you just throwing away, like, I'll take give me $200." Uh, you know, and I finally got a guy to do it, and he was a retired army guy who was an electrician in the army. He was whatever the construction engineers are, and dude, he came out and do it. He had it done like 30 minutes, and he
Yeah.
was done. And he charged, I think he wound up in charge after everything was said and done. It was like $225, you know, and he did it in like 30 minutes. And we got to talking a little bit while he was working and stuff, because he saw some army stuff, and so we played the what'd you do, where were you stationed that
You
game,
were
and
trying to get a
everything.
discount.
I ain't gonna lie, man, I didn't want to pay that $200, but anyway, so yeah, we got to talking, and he said that he's at the point where he has to turn away work, and the only reason he agreed to come out here and do this was because he had a customer cancel on him to do a little bit bigger job, and well, they had to reschedule, and so he's like, that opened my morning up, and he was like, I figured I'd come over here and make a couple $100, and
Well, that's the thing. It's the small jobs, right? Because like and I get it, man. Especially as a small business. I mean, I'm kind of happy to see it because you have some folks that may not have necessarily college degrees. They get out there, they grind, they work, per job, they work by the hour, and they're making a killing if they're any good. Thing is, there's now, I was telling my boy before, you know, because he's pretty handy. I mean, he did some, he worked as an apprentice for electrical company or for electrician for over a year, and he did some carpentry work and he did some masonry work, concrete work, stuff like that. But it's like there is this void in or I should say, shortage in like the small project market. Like you've seen those blackout screens they put on the outside of windows.
yep,
Keep it real dark. I need one. Okay, I don't need my whole house done. I don't need $10,000 worth of screens done. I need one. And dude, I cannot get anybody in the valley to come out and install one screen. Now, granted, that's probably like a $200 job, right? And I don't blame them because what they're doing is they're taking $5,000 jobs where they've got to go put in 15 screens.
sure,
But I'm like, hey man, it's like your cord. I had the same thing. I didn't run it. I called an electrician to come out and run it. one, it was like I was wasting his time because it was a 10-foot run, like literally a 10-foot run. But
Yeah.
dude, I don't mess around with electricity. Like I know
No.
what will kill me. you know, plumbing is not going to kill me. I'm not going to drown underneath my sink, but you know, electricity would kill me. So I know what I don't know. But
Right.
I called this guy and come out and run 10 feet. He just kind of like gave me this look like seriously. And it's like, well, hey man, I mean, you're here. And so he ran it for me. It was like $150 or whatever it was. But that market for those small one-off projects, there aren't people out there to do those things anymore.
No, there's not. And you're lucky, if you know how to do them. That's all. I don't mess with electricity. I'm like you. I don't mess with electricity. Like, so I mean, I put up all our ceiling fans in the house, in the
Sure.
rooms that didn't have them, when we moved in, and stuff like that. But when it comes to, hey, we need to run wires inside walls and tie into the electrical panel of your house and stuff like that, I'm like, nah, man,
Nope.
like we're getting somebody who knows what they're doing out here, because I don't want to burn my house down. And even I even asked that guy, who came out here and did the outlet, because we want under the cabinet lights in our kitchen, and right now we just have some crappy battery powered ones, under the cabinets, because out of all the things they did to this house when they had it built, uh, you know, they put in some bougie features, but they didn't do under the cabinet lighting in the kitchen, which to me is like, I mean, that should just be that shouldn't be an add on. Like that should just be standard, right? It's like your car's going to come painted, right? It's not going to show up in Bondo, pink, or Bondo gray. Like it's going to come paint. It's going to come with under the cabinet lights. And so I asked him, I was like, hey, I said, how much would you charge to do under the cabinet lighting? Well, our entire kitchen is tiled backsplash. And he was
Sure.
like, do you have an upstairs? And I was like, well, yeah, dude, like you parked in front of my house. It's obviously two-story. And I was like, yeah, upstairs. He's like, is there a crawl space in between first, second floor? I was like,
What?
nope. I was like, no. It's like, and he was like, yeah, man, I'm not even interested in doing that. He's like, one, because we looked at where all the outlets were, and we have a ton of outlets in our kitchen. Like
Sure.
there's an outlet probably every 3 feet in the kitchen, if that. It's probably even closer. And he walked me through it, and he was like, I would have to cut through one. I got to cut through all this tile. He's like, then I have to snake all of these lights, and our kitchen's kind of divided. And you've been in our kitchen,
Mhm.
it's kind of divided up. He's like, I'm gonna have to run basically one, two, three separate cables through your walls, out to your garage, and then drop down into the electric panel. Um, and he was just like, the amount of time that's going to take me to do, and then to put everything back together and fix your tile, and everything. He was like, you're not going to want to pay me what I'm going to charge you to do that. And he was like, the labor alone, he was like, he just told me, he's like, it would just be better if you go out and get some LED lights to go
Yep.
under your cabinets. He's like, I don't do houses like this anymore. He's like, it's too much. And he's like, and I have to charge too much, so. But it was little, you're right, man. Those little one-off jobs, people just aren't. It's it's a matter of time to them. It's a matter of their labor rate. It's like, what I'm gonna, the labor is gonna far exceed the work that's gonna do. And we talked about it, and it was like, all right, there's not a whole lot of it's a nice to have item. There's no ROI when you sell your house. People aren't gonna not buy your house because it doesn't have under the cabinet lighting, right?
Yeah.
So
Exactly.
the
Yeah.
like we had our master closet, custom shelving done in our master closet, and so the whole thing is shelves now, all custom and
Yeah.
everything.
I
And
saw
so
that, man.
like,
That was nice.
yeah, hey dude, it's been awesome. And so people will buy houses because of those things, right? And it's like, oh well, the entire house already has ceiling fans in every room. Oh, the entire house already has blinds. Those are those little things like that add up pretty quick. But like under the cabinet lighting, people aren't basing buying, selling decisions on under the cabinet lights. No
Usually
realtors
that's
like,
stuff that you don't even know is there until like, 3 months later, you're in the house and you're like, hey, what's this switch do? And you hit it and you're like, we got lights underneath the cabinet. Holy
yeah,
shit.
yeah, yeah, yeah. We were gonna go bougie too and have the above cabinet lighting as well. Uh, so,
Dude,
eventually one day
LED
I'll,
strips.
yeah,
LED strips from Amazon for like $10.
yeah, that's what we're gonna do. Um, eventually do our schedule is crazy this summer. I don't even have time to mess with it because we leave for the beach tomorrow. We're gonna take off.
My man.
Yeah, we're gonna go hit the Outer Banks, and we'll be in Nag's Head for a couple days, and then we come back here for a couple days, and then we're out of here to go on the Alaska cruise, and after that, come back for a couple days, and then we're headed to Kansas. So we can go see Luke's favorite artist. Well, the girls are going anyway. I'm not. They're going to go see Tay Tay in Kansas City.
Didn't they see that? I thought they saw him in New York.
No, they didn't see Taylor Swift in New York.
Oh, I thought they already saw Tay Tay, or maybe they just bought the tickets.
No, they bought the tickets and everything. But the wife's family lives out there, an hour from Kansas City. They have a pretty good sized farm out there, and so the girls are going to go see Taylor Swift, and I'll hang out on the farm and wait for them to to get back. But yeah,
Well,
we've
that'll
got
be pretty cool. It's a good
yeah,
concert.
it's yeah. Well, I hope so. I hope it's good for the amount that we pay for them damn tickets. Uh,
Like she's a hot item right now, man. I mean, they're talking about all these lawsuits and Ticketmaster, and it brings back the whole, like you remember Napster and Metallica and Pearl Jam.
oh
I mean,
yeah,
I think that industry, and I guess I don't know, and maybe one of our listeners do. Like, I don't know how much Ticketmaster, StubHub, Vivid Seats, those guys. I don't know how much they actually have to do with any of the production outside of just handling the tickets. But one of the things that I've seen, and I'm not totally against it, where they pass the, they're trying to pass this. I don't even know what you would call it, but basically it's a bill that, hey, whatever they say that you're going to pay, that's what you're paying. You don't have all these service fees and this that. Now, I'm fine with having service fees and stuff, but I should see that, right?
right.
You buy it's like we go to football games and basketball games, and dude, the ticket, when I see it up front, will be literally 50% of what I'm going to end up paying for it, because by the time I get done with the delivery charge and the service fee, and like I don't understand why that's not all just wrapped up. Just say, hey, it's a $300 ticket, or whatever it is, right? As opposed to, oh, I'm clicking 150 and then I'm checking out, and by the time I check out, it's 315. I'm like, what in the heck happened to the other, $175 or whatever, or $65? But so I think the Democrats are actually trying to pass a bill, and I forget the name of it. But it's basically like, hey, look, the price that you see, that's what you're paying,
Yeah,
right?
I saw a snippet on that, and yeah, so the number may be wrong, and one of the listeners, feel free to fact check me on this, but it was almost basically it added up all the service fees and all those fees that Ticketmaster and the other ones like StubHub and other ones run. It was almost like 20%, whatever the price of the ticket was. They tack on 20% in fees. And that's absolutely and yeah, you don't see it till you go to check out and you're like, "Wait, what?
Yeah,
Like,
it's
where is
ridiculous.
this at?" So, again, it's I'm a big fan of capitalism, but just tell me what you're charging me. That's fine. I need to see that up front because that may impact my decision to purchase a service from you or a good from you.
Well,
Um,
that's why I'm curious on what role they had to play, because I'm great with capitalism, but when you look at the barrier to entry to, because like Taylor Swift signed, I think, an agreement with Ticketmaster to handle all her tickets. So there's no competition. They're doing whatever they want. Now, I'm fine, man. Hey, you want to charge $1,000 a ticket? Rock and roll, $1,000 a ticket. It's just the little fees and stuff like that they're on top. It really pisses me off when you get to the end. And I mean, I guess you can always, you always have the right to not buy the ticket, right? And you can just say screw it. But with especially nowadays with everything gone digital, and I know they have also evolved and transitioned and gone digital, but it's just crazy to me the amount of money they can charge per ticket for any event, for what I think is a little amount of work. Now, again, I could be blind to this because I don't know what else to do, and I know there's a lot of front end, costs that they had to pay to, for the infrastructure and the apps and all that stuff. So I get all that or whatever. Just roll it in the ticket, man. Charge what you want. Just roll it like sales tax. Like I understand, hey, where I'm at, sales tax is going to be 8%. That's fine. I factor that in there, but I don't factor the the service fee and the delivery charge, and then the sales tax, and then the show fee. It's like, come on,
Yeah. Well, I think when when I was reading that on Ticketmaster and the 20% thing, roughly the 20%, they're talking about so Ticketmaster, they have deals not only with the artists, right? So so Taylor made that deal with Ticketmaster to where okay, you're gonna I'm gonna sell my tickets exclusively through you, but they also have deals with whatever venues that shows being held at, and then the promoters of the shows. So not only are they are they paying out the artist, but they're paying out the promoters, the venues. It's all kind of wrapped up in there. It's a mess. I get it, but like you said, just be transparent. Say, okay, here's
right?
the price of the ticket, and here's the fees associated with that ticket. Don't wait till I get to checkout. Especially when you have an item that everybody on Earth is trying to get all at the same time. Somebody, hey man, I know some people blew their budgets, trying to get those tickets, and then they get to the checkout, and then if they bought multiple tickets, or like, damn, now I'm paying another $1,000, whatever it is,
Yeah, for the
and
same delivery fee, it's like, can't you just deliver them all at once? you
yeah,
know?
yeah, exactly, exactly. It drives me nuts in a lot of places when you stay somewhere, and the casinos are notorious for it. And hotels in big cities are notorious for it. It's like,
Resort fee.
yeah, you have the resort fee, and then you have the service fee, and then you have this other fee, and then you have a state tax, then you have a county tax, and you have a city tax, and you're like, my lord.
Yeah,
But our room's only $168 a night. It's like, well, after you add up all the taxes, it's $300 a night, and all the resort fees, and everything. And so it does get out. It can get out of hand, and it has gotten out of hand, and in certain places. But you know, at the uh, at the end of the day, what are you going to do?
well, I mean, that's the other thing that kind of pisses me off too when you look at sports in general. They are really pricing it so that your common viewer can't afford the tickets anymore.
Yeah,
It's like, and don't get me wrong, I understand inflation, and I'm not talking about just this crap that we've gone under with Biden, but long term inflation. Understand prices go up. I get that, but it seems when I was a younger kid, I mean, I remember going to wrestling events and things like that. It's like, hey, man, 50, $60, 40, $50, and again, good seats are going to cost more, and cheaper seats, you're going to be up higher, nosebleed or whatever. But when I look at pricing some of the games that we're looking at going to, I'm just like, man, yeah, maybe if it was just me going, but like you said, you get your family. I got to take I can't take my wife and son and be like, hey, yeah, you guys just wait in the hotel. I'm going to go to the game. I'll be back. So, you look at all three of you, and even if it's just two, I mean, it's a lot of money, man. I mean, it is a lot of money. And I feel it's like the NBA, and I'm curious to see how this is going to work out. So, one, congratulations to the Denver Nuggets, won their first NBA championship. That was last night, Monday night, by the time this thing drops, Thursday or Friday. But the NBA next year is going to do a mid-season tournament, which sounds crazy to me because I'm kind of like, okay, mid-season tournament. So does the record count or not count? And then what's the advantage to winning this mid-season tournament or whatever? But now they're going to work all that stuff out. But the financial piece to it is the winning team. The players get like $500,000 a piece. And I'm like, hey man, why don't you just lower the price of some of the tickets? Lower the price of some of the tickets so that maybe I can go watch a game, or take my kids to go watch a game or whatever. And it's not just basketball, but it's like like I'm looking at football tickets, dude. It is insane. I mean, and I don't understand it. I get making the money and I get the capitalism, but I don't know. To me, it just seems like, hey, man, you've got an arena that holds 70,000 people, 80,000 people. Why don't you price it so like your actual viewer, your actual fan base can come watch it? It's nuts.
yeah, for sure. So we saw, you see that in everything. So when when we were all working, um, working together in Maryland and stuff, whenever the Braves would, come play the Nats, there's a couple of us that were Braves fans in the office, and we'd all, hey man, let's go catch a game. And it was just, by and large, it was just the fellas, and we would go down and we watch a game. But man, if you wanted good seats, it's like you were paying 60, 70, $80 and on up to get good seats, and you're just like, dude, like I just want to go watch a baseball game,
Yeah, no kidding. Especially
and so
baseball. That used to always be cheap. Hey man, come out,
yeah,
get it.
and so, but and then it's not only that, it's okay. Well, I've got to get there. So and you're not driving, so it's like you catch the metro, but even after you get there, it's like all right, man, I'm hungry. I'm gonna grab a hot dog and a beer. A beer is $14 at Nat Stadium, and then the hot dog's like 10 for a hot dog. Where I can buy, I could buy a couple packs of hot dogs for $10 at the grocery store,
Smuggle them
and
in your pocket.
exactly. Um, and so yeah, it was to the point. It was like if it's just you, like you said, you're like, okay, man, I can swing a day at the park. But when you're like us, it's like, okay, party of five. Like it gets expensive really quick. Just to go watch a baseball game with the family, bro. You're talking a couple $100 easy, and
By the
that's just the
way,
tickets.
that's the real reason for the clear bag policy in the stadiums. It's not for your security, believe
Oh
me.
yeah, a
It's
hundred
not for your
percent.
security. It's so that you don't smuggle booze and hot dogs and potato chips in that game because it's another $200 you're going to drop.
Yeah, that's like the movie theaters. I don't know about other areas, but the movie theaters here, they started to do that. Oh, I say the movie theaters plural. We have one, and and so they started to do that. They were like, hey, just clear bag policy for people's safety. Make sure nobody's bringing weapons or anything like crazy like that in, and blah blah. Dude, the backlash was so quick and
Oh
so
yeah.
hard that they were just like, all right, yeah, no, it's fine. Don't worry about it. It's like, yeah, I ain't worried about it, bro, because I'm bringing my big bag of peanut M and M's in that I got at the grocery store instead of paying the $8 bag from you. Uh, and when even after we moved down here, on the baseball thing, like we lucked out when we lived in Maryland because there was were they AAA? They were AA or AAA for the Orioles. I think they're called the Bowie Bay Sox, and it
Oh yeah,
was
yeah.
yeah, it was 10 minutes from the house. You could go in that stadium, and for $7 I could sit in the front row, like all the way right behind the dugout. Beers were $4, hot dogs were like $2, and you could literally go and you could go watch a baseball game with the family for less than $50. And so there's a minor league team, I can't remember if they're AA or AAA down here, called the Carolina Mudcats. And same thing. It's you can actually go to the ballpark, and hang out and watch a game for less than $50. And I wish it was that way with the major league teams, because sporting events like that are a lot of fun. Even, and I know people don't like sitting for baseball that like 3 hours long, in games and stuff, which they sit for football, which football games are almost just as long. But anyway, but yeah, you go and you hang out, and it is a good time, um, especially if you're into the sport and into the team. But man, it's just you're almost priced out of it now. I can't even imagine what the cost is to go to an NBA or an NFL game these days.
What I've seen with the NFL, I can tell you is expensive. It is not cheap. We go to Pittsburgh games, and obviously we had to fly across the country. And last year we took my boy, and you talking about creating a lot of friction for your family. Because you get in there one, you've already flown across the country, then you've got the hotel room. Fortunately, where we stay at, you can walk to the stadium, so it's like okay, so we're not driving, and I'm not. We're not, taking an Uber or anything like that. So you walk, 4 or 5 blocks, you stay there. We usually use Marriott points. They got a residence inn right there. So it's like, okay,
Nice,
that's badass. But then, you've already paid all the money to get in. And then it's like you said, dude, like a beer is $20. So it's like, I get in there and my boy's like, oh, I want a beer. I'm like, all right, I'll get you a beer. He's like, and I want that hot dog. I'm like, okay, that's another 20. So, you start doing the math in your head, right?
Yeah.
And then you're just kind of like, no, I won't eat. And, my wife's like, are you sure? And I'm like, no, I'll split your hot dog or whatever you guys don't eat. I'll, get that.
Yeah.
And then it makes them feel bad. And it's like, but it's not, I mean, it is about the money, but the other part is like, some of it, I just have a hard time. I'm like, bro, like you said, that is a $20 hot dog that I could buy, probably a quarter of the pig back home and have it made, like literally for what
Yeah.
I'm paying.
Yeah. Sometimes it just comes down to the principle. Just I'm not paying that. I have the money. I can buy that, but I just can't bring myself to pull the trigger on a $20 hot dog. Like I just can't do it. I can't stomach that because that's absolutely insane. Yeah, but you stand there and you do the math because whenever we talk about doing something, right? We talk about, oh, well, let's go here, let's do this. What do you think? We even kicked around the idea of doing Christmas markets in somewhere in Europe.
Now
This
that would
this
be cool. That would
Yeah.
be cool.
So like this December, when the kids get out of school for for winter break, the wife's like, she's never been to a Christmas market. I've only been to a couple. I managed to get to Germany TDY for a week, and at one point, and she's like, well, why don't we go do the Christmas market? It's just we won't go over Christmas. But just like the week before Christmas, when the kids get out for winter break, we can punch over there for like 5 or 6 days, and then and come back. And I was like, okay, well let's take a look at it. And so I pull up and I'm like, okay, how much is an airline ticket for you? Let's say from, from here to Hungary or Frankfurt. And when the price comes up, it's like, okay, now times five, right? Just for the airline ticket, just for the airline
We can
ticket. I
stop
was
right
just
there.
like, yeah, I was just like, oh my, oh my gosh.
And you haven't even found somewhere to stay yet.
No, bro, you don't have lodging. You don't have food. You don't have all the stuff that people are going to buy. Right. And you're already before you even figure out your lodging and everything in it, you're already in it for like 10 G's, right? Because it's you times five. And you're just
Yeah.
like, bro, that's absolutely bananas. So that's when I texted. I was like, man, we were looking at, might look at Space A flights. And it's that Christmas time in the summer is the worst time of the year to take a Space A flight. We still have not taken one. We want to. Uh, I don't know if you've looked into it, but you guys have big airbase out there that has a lot of flights. Have you guys
Yeah.
ever you guys ever checked it out and thought about it?
I've looked at, so I wanted to do it from here because we have Luke Air Force Base,
Yeah.
but they don't do Space A from here. Very, very few flights. So I've got to either go out to like Barstow, California, or I think down because either here, because we have one here and in Tucson, Davis Monthan Air Force
Yeah,
Base.
Dathan's Motham. They don't do it.
Very, very, very limited Space A flights, if any. Um, Now there is one that leaves. It's either in Kansas or Missouri. I'm trying to think. So I actually talked to a lady who worked for AMC out there. It goes to Hawaii every 2 weeks. It's a ring flight, and the lady's like, "Yeah, it's like $5, and it's never full." She's like, "There might be one or two people here, from again. I think it's one of the places out in Kansas, or Missouri, one of those air bases out there. But yeah, out here, dude, very, very little. And I'd love to take one. I'd love to take one with the wife, because especially now working remote, I could get away with it. But yeah, it's just by the time I, planned on getting out to California or the next closest place, I mean, hell, at that point, and I don't know what it's like on the East Coast. We were actually looking at Europe flights not too long ago. Depending on where you go, they're not bad. I mean, here's what's nuts. Like, and I like the old man brace. I can literally fly from here to Paris cheaper than I can fly from here to Pittsburgh.
That's crazy.
Like a round trip flight from here to Paris. Now again, we're talking about economy seats and this. It's like $700, dude. Like $750. I went on there and priced it out. I was like, babe, for this, like we could literally fly to Paris. Now, obviously, there's a lot more involved in all that, but it's just nuts that I can go. And we had looked at several different places in Europe, and there were several different cities that we could get to under $800 at the time.
Dude, that's nuts. That's crazy.
Yeah,
Yeah, so for you, I know because I dug around on AMC's website, and they they don't make it they don't make it easy simply because it's DoD. and the government. So you got to go to each individual Air Force base to see, you know, if
Right.
they have a PAX terminal, if they, do Space A out of there and stuff. And for, I don't know how far of a drive it is for you. I think it's in Palm Springs or around Palm Springs, Travis Air Force Base.
Yeah, and that's what I'm saying. I got to go out there, and that's like it's 5 hours.
Yeah. So Travis has a ton of Space A flights. They do Alaska, Japan, Korea, Hawaii, basically, anywhere into Indo-PACOM you want to go. They, they've got some Space A running. Um,
No, my
for
luck, I would take the family. We would get to Korea, and I would get stuck out there and not be able to come back, and then have to buy 3 one-way tickets coming back. So I might at that point, I might as well just bought round trip.
yeah, yeah. I definitely want to. I definitely want to use it. They have the. I mean, obviously it's a 5 hour drive for us, but they have the BWI rotator, that runs
And they got a
basically
good
every other
system.
day, from BWI to Frankfurt and back. And so we're looking at it. We want to take advantage of it because I mean it really is a great deal. It's you pay your $25 whatever fee, and then you go wherever the plane goes. And if that plane's going to Spain, you're going to Spain for $25. Now I mean I can do it. It sucks, but I can do it. It's just it's all you know. The I think one of the other hard thing about it rather is like expectation management for
Oh yeah.
the family. It's like, so let me talk to you about what the inside of a C-17 is like.
Yes.
Right? If you think your leg room sucks on American or Southwest, you're gonna have plenty of leg room inside this thing
Oh yeah.
because you're sitting along the wall in a plastic seat that's gonna numb your ass to sleep within like 45 minutes of you sitting there. And oh, by the way, you've got to wear earplugs because it's loud as shit, you know. And I think that would probably be the biggest hurdle because I'm sure my kids would get on there and they would just be like, "Dad, what have you done? Like, what is happening to us right now?"
Now, I did fly when I was active duty. I flew on a Space A flight. We were using it for transport, but it was set up for Space A passengers. Were, dude, I loved it because it's like you said. I mean, one, yeah, you've got all the room in the world, and that's what I care about. Like that's my
Yeah,
problem is being, you know, pigeonholed into some tuna can for 8 hours or 9 hours or whatever. And I love being the C-17 because they had standard airline seats in the middle, and there were like 4 rows of 5 or something like that. I mean, it wasn't a lot, but you know what? You could get up, you could walk around. I mean, again, it was loud as heck, like you said, but I mean, you're gonna have AirPods in anyway, so get up, walk around, stretch your legs. You're not just confined to the seat. So I actually dug it. I mean, I need to look into it more. They were just, it's kind of like you where you're at from BWI. I mean, there's also another trip that you got to make, right? So you're getting from where you're at to BWI, car storage. Hey, what happens if you can't make the next flight back? What happens then? Can your car stay there for another week or whatever? So there are obviously a lot of additional challenges there.
yeah. There's definitely there's definitely some logistics to to think about there. But, I mean, I guess depending upon the time of year, depending upon where you're going, because I mean, there's even, I mean, there's even just space safe flights within the United States that go back and forth within the U.S. They don't all run out of, run outside the U.S. So, I mean, all right. So, so I get stuck out in, the Midwest somewhere. All right. There's not seats or whatever. All right. Well, then I just buy a one way plane ticket, back to North Carolina or wherever I need to get to. But you're still, uh, definitely some logistics to work out. But there would be plenty of room on a C-17 for. Did you see the article? We were talking about airplanes and seats and stuff. Did you see the lady um, who the CNN article called her plus size? I'm just going to call her fat because
I
that's
did
what
see
she
that.
is. Where she is complaining about quote discriminatory airline seat policies because they required her to purchase two seats
And she was
because
huge.
she was massive. Even she required, I think it was two seatbelt extenders, and she could not fit in her seat with the armrest down. She had to raise the armrest, and she took up a quarter of the seat next to her, and the airline was like,
spilling
no,
into
and
it.
right. Well, the person that's sitting there is like, I can't, like, they physically couldn't sit there because of her. And so they were like, "Man, you gotta, you have to buy 2 seats," and they worked it out. And so now, she's come out and you know threatened lawsuit against I forget which airline it was, American or United or something. But she's threatened to sue them for discriminating against her, making her buy 2 seats.
Unreal.
It's
Unreal.
But it's crazy. And so of course, Twitter being the cesspool that it is, people are on there defending her, and they're like, yes, people, plus size, aka fat, fat people,
Yeah, because she
you
was
know.
beyond plus. That was
Oh,
not
bro,
plus.
yeah, no, and
That
she's
was
sit,
multiplier and
yeah.
X. That was
And
an
then they
X
had this
plus
other, like,
exponent.
her social media is filled with, her like chugging, like, 2 liter sodas and stuff like that. So for those out there who want to come at us with like my genetics, no, you know, no, don't even think about that. But yeah, it's like, look, is it fair to the person who paid for their seat that you're taking up a quarter of it? Like, no. But why should I have to share my seat with somebody who didn't pay for it? I
Now, you
paid
know
full
what?
price.
And at the same time, then okay, that's fine. Don't make her pay that. I should be able to sue her. I am renting that seat for that duration of time, and you are spilling over into my property that I'm renting.
Yeah.
I should be able to sue her then. Like, hey, okay, you can be fat. I don't, and that's here's what gets me with all this stuff, and it takes us a little bit off topic, but nobody, well, I say nobody generally, okay, there are obviously fringe there, we've talked about before. You get 5-10% on both sides, extremes, whatever. Most people don't care. It's like the whole LGBTQ whatever. You want to be fat, like, I don't care, man. You want to be fat, that's fine. You want to be gay, that's fine. You want to be heterosexual, that's fine. Homosexual, nobody cares. Most people do not care. The problem is when it starts to impact me or my family, i.e. my kids, i.e. my space, or whatever, then that's when I care. There's no attack on the LGBTQ community. It's when you shove it down our throats and you start to try to expose our kids to things like that. That's what I have a problem. And it's not all of them. Okay, admittingly, it's probably a very very small percentage of those folks that are already twisted in their heads anyway. But generally speaking, nobody cares. Hey, man, you want to be fat and weigh 450, 500 pounds? You're an American. You have the freedom to do that. But the minute your ass starts to spill underneath the armrest into my seat, now I have a problem with it. So you need to buy 2 seats, and that's the same thing with everything else. Everybody removes that. It's like I keep saying, those who preach tolerance are the least tolerant. It's like, no, you need to be tolerant of me and my identity and whatever the case is. And it's like, but you're not tolerant of what my beliefs are and my ideas are. And if you keep to yourself and do your thing, I'll keep to myself, do my thing. We can all be happy. But no, that's not the way it is. It's what I need a law to force you to accept me the way I am, even though I didn't accept me the way I originally was, that, the way God made me. You're going to accept me the way that I want to be now. That's what I
Yeah.
have a problem with.
Yeah. Yeah. No, absolutely. It's truly insane. So this chick, my other favorite picture of this lady is her sitting in the airline seat, and she's taking up, damn near half of the airline seat next to her, but she flies with her oxygen tank, her little oxygen bag, because her heart and lungs can't keep up with that with that big chassis that
Oh Lord.
they got to keep they got to keep pumping to. And so, well, here's the other thing with this though, is you, in the event of an emergency, you're a liability.
You better
One,
have a window seat.
exactly, you can't sit in an exit row, because what if you become incapacitated? People can't get out the emergency exit because you're plugging it like the little Dutch boy, right? In the dam, like. And so, I mean, it's a legit, like, you're a legit safety issue. And when you think about it, not, on an aircraft, if somebody has to pull you to safety, bro, I mean, all you can hope for is that you landed in the water and you're more buoyant, right? Than, in the water. Because if somebody's got to pull you to safety on terra firma, you're just going to die. but you're just gonna burn up and die because nobody can, bro, nobody can do the 300 plus pound, duffel bag drag on you to get you away from, a burning wreckage. Um, but but it's a safety issue at that point.
No,
And
it is, dude.
my other thing on that is like when you see these people and you're like, hold up, so they just got to buy a ticket, but you didn't charge them for being overweight. But my bag that is 51 pounds instead of being 50 pounds, I got to pay extra for that. Like that's some bullshit.
Dude, you
So
know what? If somebody like that gets on the plane, you're gonna have a couple bags that don't make it to where you're going. They're like, "Hey, man, we're gonna have to offset this." They're like, "Yeah, Josh is back. Yeah, this one not gonna make it."
the pilot is dumping fuel on the tarmac and be like, yeah, we're
They're
not gonna
like,
be
"You
able to
haven't
take off.
you haven't taken off yet." Like, yeah, we're good, man. We
Yeah.
just gotta get in the air.
Yeah. No, yeah. No, and the whole, you have to accept me. It's like, well, you couldn't accept you. Why do I have to? It's not.
Which, speaking of that, I mean, I tell you, and I said this with about the beer thing. I'm surprised that not necessarily with Bud Light. I'm surprised Target continues to take the beating that they're taking. Because, dude, I mean, when you look at their market share as well, and it's so funny because you got all these people like, ha ha ha, your boycott didn't work, yada yada yada, whatever, whatever. Like, have you seen their share price? The market is speaking. The consumers, they are speaking. Bud Light, I think, is in danger. Bud Light's in danger. Like Target, people, and we've said this before, but Target, people will go back to Target. They're going to go back and shop there because a lot of it's convenience. There are things that they carry that not you don't necessarily you'd have to go out of your way for to find it or to get it or whatever. So eventually, people start to go back because I just need sugar. It's right here around the block. Let me go down there and get it. So I think that recovers. But Bud Light, dude, I mean, once you switch beers and you go 2-3 weeks and you drink another beer, that's your beer. And I mean, like nowadays, like when you look at what their market is, that 21 to 25-year-old frat kid, I mean, dude, you think my boy is showing up to any party trying to pick up chicks with a case of Bud Light? Oh,
No.
hell no. It ain't happening, man. You're showing up with anything. They're going to show up with White Claws before they show up with daggum Bud Light. They could be in danger, dude.
Yeah, I don't know. I'd have to look up and see, at this point how much Bud Light has lost. So Target, as of 4 days ago, is at 15 billion losses. What? And you're right. Target's not gonna go away. Too many white women still love Target, and they're gonna continue to shop there. Uh, what I'm surprised hasn't happened with either one of them, but especially with Bud Light and Anheuser Busch's stockholders. Where are the stockholders at with a lawsuit? Because I mean, as a publicly traded company, when you make these types of decisions, one of the first things you have to consider is what is in the best interest of the shareholder.
Yep.
And taking Target again as of 4 days ago, like taking a $15 billion loss, that probably wasn't in the best interest of the shareholder. And the same thing with Bud Light. Now is Anheuser Busch going to go out of business because of this? Absolutely not. What you'll see, Bud Light, may not survive, but Bud Light may just go away as a brand, and they may get to the point where they have to rebrand it. There will be no more Bud Light in Bud Light's name. It's gonna be something else.
Yeah, I
Um,
think my boy was telling me he was down at the local Walmart and they've got like the Bud Light, end cap or whatever, and there's like American flags all over it. They're putting like M4s on there and everything, trying to make it look all. It's like my boy's like no. So Bud Light is down 24%, almost 25% since April, and this just happened. So, dude, you will never guess what the top selling U.S. beer brand in the U.S. is. You'll never guess it. Take a guess.
I heard it was Modelo.
Yeah, dude, yeah, look at that. So that's a beer drinker right there.
Yeah.
Modelo Especial overtook the brand as the top selling U.S. beer in May.
Yeah, no, I thought I'd heard that. I don't know that because I'm smart. I only saw that on it might have been on Twitter or something. That I saw that, but I was like Modelo. Yeah, it's kind of crazy. But is it who owns Modelo? Does
I think
Anheuser Busch own?
no, I think Modelo is the conglomerate, and then they make like Pacifico and Corona or whatever. I'm not sure about Corona, but they make several other beers under the Modelo brand, as well as Modelo beer and whatever else.
Oh, okay. Oh, yeah. I think it's Grupo Modelo. I
Yeah,
think
something
is
like that.
yeah, something like, yeah. Modelo's not a bad beer. I've had it.
Oh no, it's real good.
Modelo Black, is pretty good. And then I don't know. I like Pacifica. It's not a the only. There's only two beers from Mexico that I avoid, by and large, and that's Corona. I don't
Yeah.
know. I don't know what it is. I just some people love Corona. I can never get on it. And Tecate. Tecate is absolutely terrible. It's like the natural.
That's like Pabst Blue Ribbon, dude.
Oh,
That's
dude,
what Tecate is.
it's even worse, man. It's even worse. It's like you remember that old beer, Pearl?
Oh yeah. Oh
It's
Lord.
dude, it's like Pearl. I would rather drink Bush beer than drink um doggone uh Corona and Tecate.
That's actually funny. I have not heard Tecate in probably 15 years. And going back to being the poor man's beer, I used to have I had a tank top that said Tecate on it because I think it was one of those, like, if you bought a 12 pack, you had like a tank top shoved in the in the
I
case or whatever. I was like,
love it.
hey man, that's what I wore for like 10
That's
years.
why people were just buying a $15 tank top and they were chucking the beer.
Exactly. So Bud Price, so the Anheuser Busch stock before all of this happened was about $67 a share. It dropped down to about 55. It's now back to 57 a share. Now again, we're talking about all of Anheuser-Busch. So that's how much of a hit they've taken
That's
because
huge.
of, oh dude, just because of Bud Light. And then when you look at, and dude, this actually makes you want to cry. When you look at Target, they were a high of 170. Yeah, they're down to like one third. Ooh, not even that. They're down to 128.
Ouch.
It's a buying
Ouch.
opportunity. It's
I
a
was about to
buying
say
opportunity.
I was about to say, he might actually, man, might actually, dude, hit old boy up and be like, hey man, let's pick up some Target.
Hey man, money talks, dude. Money
And
talks.
yeah, I mean, at the end of the day, it's one of those things. It's like, I hate supporting woke companies, but at the end of I'm a capitalist at heart, and and definitely might be some time to might be a time for all you canteeners out there to take a look at picking up a few shares of Target stock.
Yeah, you know what? I wouldn't. I'm not looking at Anheuser Busch just because I think they're, again. I think that they hit on the Bud Light section. Like you said, I don't know if they come back and they're now Bud Lighter or whatever it is, and change, rebrand or whatever it is. But uh, they are going to have a hard time rebounding back in that portion of the industry versus like a Target. I mean, man, you give Target another quarter, 2 quarters, and they'll be right back up to it. Because at the end of the day, you're getting cheap shares right now. Their earnings are going to be fine. But what's interesting is I know Kohl's had a little bit of a problem, but I can speak locally here. I went to the Kohl's, which is next door to our Target, and they are somewhat of a competitor, at least in the clothing stuff
Sure,
that side of the house. Not they don't carry groceries and stuff, but clothing or whatever. Dude, you could tell that like the store manager or whoever's in charge of that place is like, get rid of anything that's pride. You walk in that door, and the first thing you see is like an end cap of like "I Love America" t-shirts. It's American flags everywhere. It's all U.S. flags, patriotic shirts, this and that. And you can definitely tell there is a move by at least the local guy here or local gal who's running the Kohl's to definitely take market share from Target for those folks that don't go there. And you know what? I mean, we went into Kohl's and we bought stuff, so and we didn't go into Target.
yeah. I would I, I go in our Kohl's every now and then. They used to. I used to go in there for like dress shirts, and stuff. But they stopped the Kohl's here. They stopped carrying dress clothes for men, which I don't. I don't understand that, especially because where I live, there's really nowhere else to go unless you want to go. Pay an ungodly amount at Brooks Brothers. Um, and so they stopped carrying dress clothes. So I don't go in there. I don't go into to
That's
Kohl's a
because
whole
dress
lot.
clothes are going out of style, dude. I mean, when you look at that's another topic on its own. But the days of and I guess the good thing Luke isn't here because I don't get him all fired up about wearing a suit and tie and all that other stuff. But the days of showing up, in a suit and tie are just gone. And so, I was like you. I would go to Kohl's for like one-off dress shirts, things that I wasn't going to wear all the time, but like, hey, I'm gonna go out and have a nice dinner, and I need to go get a tie or something like that. But like you said, I didn't want to go to Brooks Brothers and necessarily go buy, $200, set of loafers or, a new sport coat or something like that. That was going to be $300 or $400. But, nowadays the days of people wearing formal attire or what we would consider formal attire, or business attire, those days are gone, man. It's totally changed nowadays.
I think it's again. I think it depends on where you're at, and what you're doing. You know, again, like so. Obviously, I work from home, so I don't wear. I very rarely wear business attire. Um, if I have to travel to go to, home office, then I go and I'm basically in a sport coat, slacks, and a button-down shirt. Like I don't show up in a tie to my home office. One, because I'm an employee there. Nobody else, wears that stuff every day. By and large, maybe some of the execs, depending upon what they have going on. Um, but us bottom feeders, for the most part, everybody's in jeans and the company shirt. By and large. But since I don't go there often, I try when I do show up, I try and dress up just a little bit. Um, but so it's funny. So we just had, we had a round of interviews last couple of days for some of our empty positions, and we had people show up. Basically, like one dude showed up in a t-shirt to a job interview,
It's like, hey,
and
COVID's over, right, bro?
yeah, and so it was just it was one of those things that my boss. I didn't sit in on the interview. My boss, this is all coming from my boss, and my boss was like, he was like, man, he's like, I was just in a button down collared shirt. He's like, I didn't even have a jacket on. He goes, that's where I was. He said, but he goes, as soon as that dude showed up in a t-shirt, he was like, I was done. He's like, I didn't even need to, finish the interview. He's like, I did, um, because it's a panel interview and everything. But he was just like, I'm a no. I'm already a no. You showed up to the interview, and then, when I I go back and I wish Luke was here because I get him fired up again. And I go back. So when I came down to Fort Bragg, to interview for the assignment down here, I you come down, you took PT test, and then later that morning you show up at where they tell you to, and you're going to do a whole bunch of there's testing and interviews, events that you got to get through. So I showed up, and I'm in a suit. I'm in a suit and tie because at the end of the day, it's it's a job interview. And it was funny because when they when you ask, we're like, okay, well, what's a uniform, right? For this, and they're like, okay, obviously PT test, just wear PT attire. And they're like, the rest of the week, it literally was wear what you think is appropriate. And so I'm like, hey man, this is a job interview, so I show up in a suit and tie. And we had one guy come in, and we're all sitting there, waiting to get started, whatever evolution we were getting ready to do. And one guy came in, and he was in jeans, like a button down plaid short sleeve REI shirt, and
Good
like,
Lord.
some Solomon Trail runners. And everybody's kind of looking at him. And there was a couple more guys that were in suits. And you had one guy who was in a suit, but, with no tie. And, we're all looking at this cat, and it was like, hey, man, like, this is a job interview. And one guy said something. One guy's like, "That's a pretty bold outfit," and he was like, well, this is just what they wear every day. I mean, so I mean, dress for where you're working." It was like, ah, not for the interview, like not for the interview, bro. Um, you know, and so I don't know, man. I guess I'm old school in that, in that way. When I went to interview for my very first job bagging groceries at Publix, my dad was like, "You're going to wear a suit and tie." Right? I was like, "It's bagging groceries, dad." And my dad was like, "It's a job interview, and that's how you have to dress." And so I don't know. It
Well,
stuck with me.
because you're not going to not get the job because of the way you dress if you wore a suit and tie, right?
Right.
I mean, if I show up in jeans and a t-shirt or whatever, and you don't get the job because there's a million, especially those places you're talking about, and even a regular job interview, like sometimes you're never really going to know the true reason why you didn't get hired or accepted. I mean, they'll tell you, blah blah blah, whatever.
Yeah,
But
yeah.
what will stick in your back? What I will know is this: if I wear a suit and tie and I don't get the job, I can rule out how I dressed as being one of the reasons. I probably either at that point I either have a crappy personality or I just downright suck and don't have the skill set that they're looking for, which I'm
Exactly.
fine with one of those two, but I've definitely ruled out the dress code, right? If you show up in
Exactly.
jeans and a t-shirt and they're like, "Hey, don't show up." It's like, "Well, man, I may have actually been a good fit. They may have actually liked me." Um, but I guess in Luke's case, he would just show up in the jeans and a t-shirt and just be like, "Well, they just missed out,"
Yeah.
you know.
Yeah. It'd be like, when we interviewed in Maryland, the other guy that was with us was just like, whatever, man, it's good. You know, we're all this is all, I forget what he said. He's like, nah, man, it's good. I'm coming from that world. So yeah, it's all good. I'm good. And,
He was in.
yeah, man, he was in until he wasn't. So-
He said, "Let me tell you what it's going to be like." I'm like, all right, just let me handle this on my own. I'm fine. You do you, guy. I want to do me.
Yeah.
Thank you."
Yeah. That was the thing too. It's like I always, I didn't like when they were like, okay, this is what you wear during the week. And then on Friday, this is what you have to wear on this day. And I really wish they would have left it ambiguous and be like, where would you think you should wear? Because now I get to see your thought making, your
Yeah, there's
decision
a
making
judgment piece
process.
in there, right?
Yeah. There's more of that assessment data is in there. It's like, okay, let's see your thought process. Where would you think is appropriate? Man, you get some people wilding, as my kids say, showing up in all states of dress, be like, "This isn't a Catalina wine mixer. What are you doing?"
Showing up with
Um,
some deck shoes and no socks.
yeah,
Like, what's wrong with you, man?
yeah,
So I wanted to ask you. We were chatting the other day about joining the military, and you pulled up some stats about your local high school, and it is just too much to type. So we talk about it on the show, and uh, I think one of your kids was having a graduation party, and you were going to have the opportunity to talk to them about, just overall what they thought about the military and this and that, and to kind of caveat this up front. And I'll get into it a little bit when you get done. But obviously, you're in a military town. You're in a military town close to a base, and for us recruiters, you generally have a pretty high enlistment rate around those areas for obvious reasons, right? Your center of influence is much greater there, and you tend to be, a little farther to the right and a little pro-military versus if you're out in, San Francisco, California, where there's no more military base, things like that. So I'll let you get into kind of the conversations you have and what was your takeaway from it.
yeah. So our oldest graduated high school this past weekend. Again, super proud, and she did very well. Um, and she starts college in August, and she knocked out a lot of her college courses, first year college courses, her junior and senior year of high school. She did dual enrollment. So that kid's 100 times smarter than I ever will be. Uh, and so anyway, so we go to graduation, and they have, for the kids that have already signed up, they when they call their name to come get their appointment, they say, enlisting in the United States Army, enlisting in United States Navy, and and these are the kids in the DEP program, and so the recruiters were out there, especially the Marine recruiters, were out there in their dress blues, everything shining, looking good in the sun. There, just a quick side note: the Marine dress blues are probably the best military uniforms out there. They are sharp, man. They are just so sharp. Anyway, so the graduating class was like 540 something, and out of every single one of them, five people went into the military. Five, and one of them was appointed to West Point. So, which, hey, man, you're appointed out of high school, to West Point. You've done something right, or somebody in a a senator or somebody and get you in. But what I was just thinking while I'm sitting there, though, it's like, man, only five out of a graduating class of over 500. That's not a lot, especially like you said, for a military town. And I expected that number to be a lot higher. Yeah, I didn't expect, 499 of them to be going into the military, but I expected probably 40 to 50, you know. That to me, I think that's right where that number, probably should have been. So anyway, so it was like, man, that seems really low for a graduating class this big in the area that we live in. So last night, she had her graduation party, here at the house. So I put a lock on my bourbon cabinet, and wife and I, we went and hung out upstairs in our media room while the kids were downstairs and out in the backyard doing whatever they were doing. And but hey, I got a chance to just chat with a couple of them really quick, and we started talking. It was like, hey, what's your plans after high school? What are you doing? Well, they were like, oh, well, I'm going to college. Some of them are going to App State. A lot of them are staying here and doing their 2 years at Sandhills Community College, because Sandhills has a scholarship program if you dual enroll your junior senior year, and then if you maintain a certain GPA, you can finish your associate's degree for free there. And so I mean, it's a great deal. So a lot of kids were staying in the area doing that, and so I was like, did you give any thought to joining the military? And to a person, they were like, no, nope. And it was like, well, why? And I damn near sounded like a recruiter. Sounded like old Roger back in the day. It's like, why? Like, it's a great deal, man. They're going to give you money. They're going to give you clothes. They're going to give you a place to sleep. They're going to give you food, and you're going to get a paycheck, and you're going to learn a skill. You're going to learn a skill that, as long as you're smart about it, you're going to pick a skill that you can market on the outside world if you choose to, get out after an initial enlistment, or if you stay in, and retire. You have a skill set, and you're going to get trained. And you're going to get to go see some of the world, some of the cool places, some of the not so cool places. Um, and some of the reasons that I got back was they don't want to. Well, one of them's like, I don't want to die in Ukraine. uh, you know, and the others were just like, they were not confident in the military leadership. They were actually going to be. They didn't know that they were going to be taken care of, and taken care of in the sense of not abused. And so it was like, okay, abused how? And it wasn't like they're afraid that they're going to get rolled in the grass and and stuff like this, but just you know abused, because they're like, they have friends that are in the military. A lot of them have parents that are in the military, and so they hear the stories from their parents. They hear the stories from their friends, and then they see, especially with social media, and one kid's like, man, he's like, I was just seeing what's going on with a bunch of soldiers out west, to where like they wouldn't even let them go get their cars you know out of parking lots before it flooded. And so we're talking about what's going on at Fort Carson right now with Fourth Infantry Division, and them. It's like, what? So anyways, I don't want to get sidetracked with that story, but and so you're thinking about this. You're like, because social media obviously wasn't a thing when we joined, um, and so you may have had a family member in the military if you didn't live in a military community, or you may have had a friend, and so it was just that's kind of what you heard. But when you have social media and a lot of the bad stuff is being highlighted, and it's not wrong that it is. It should be highlighted because it needs to be fixed. And so when you've got kids following U.S. Army WTF moments, on Facebook and Twitter, and they see what's going on, when they see like
That's the worst page.
it's when they see what's going on with, oh, I'm getting a phone call at 9:30 at night saying I got to take a PT test the very next morning. Great, you should always be ready to pass PT test anytime, blah blah. But they see that stuff and they see that toxic leadership, and they're like, I don't, why would I do that when I can just stay here, go to community college, get my degree? Yeah, I'm not getting free clothes, free food, and and a paycheck too, but I'm also not dying in Ukraine. um and so that was just some of the atmospherics that I got. And these kids are, and it was a pretty diverse group. So you had some, kids that were, in athletics, their high school career. And you had kids who, were in kind of like the fine arts, they were in band or, chorus and stuff like that. And you had, kids who play lacrosse. and they're just like, it's meh. And and then one of them was like, because my parents keep telling me I need to do it, and so it's just like I'm not going to do it because they keep telling me to do it. I was like, I feel you. I was you, brother. Um, so, you know, um, so yeah, but it's just and that kind of speaks, that again anecdotal, but I think there's a lot of kids out there that are like that right now, and high school seniors, even the rising seniors that are getting ready to start their senior year this fall. Dude, the taste of the military is just like, and so everybody here also just had the name change Fort Bragg to to Fort
Good
Liberty.
Lord.
So they saw all that, and it was in the news, and there was both sides of that argument was in the news and stuff. So they've been inundated with that for what, the last year, when it was like, okay, it's going to happen, and they hear their parents. It's just, yeah, it's not it's not good when you take a look at the numbers that we need to maintain an all volunteer force and the numbers that are joining. It's those are definitely some indicators and warnings that we have a problem. And just one last example, then I'll throw it back over to you. So I follow the Sergeant Major of the Army on Twitter, and there were people on there arguing about the fact that female drill sergeants wear the old school bush hat.
Right.
And I think it's really cool. I think it's a badass hat. And then male drill sergeants wear the standard World War I campaign hat.
Right.
And so somebody got on there and somebody made the argument, one of the mill Twitter, which mill Twitter is, it is hot ass garbage. Because the loudest accounts are all the, the ones that skew kind of, well, they skew very left. And, they got on there and they were, they brought up the issue that, well, females go through the same drill sergeant school. They have to meet the same standards, as male drill sergeants. Why can't they wear the campaign hat? And the Sergeant Major of the Army retweeted that and was like, well, let me get the formation's thoughts. And it was like,
Oh Lord.
I responded back. I responded back to him. And I was like, you can't meet your recruiting goals right now. You are on the verge of the all volunteer force damn near collapsing. Readiness is not green, and you're having a conversation about what hat drill sergeant, male and female drill sergeants are wearing. Are you serious? That's where your priorities are right now. It was like, I think there's definitely bigger fish to fry. And then I responded back to the person who was complaining about them not being the same. And I was like, yeah, same school, same everything. What was the ACFT standard? Is that the same? Oh no. Okay. That's right. Men have to do more to pass that ACFT than women do. So not necessarily all the same, huh? And, of course that kind of touched off a little bit of a dust up.
Well, and who's to say that the brown round is any better than the bush hat, right?
Exactly.
It's like,
Exactly. And that's the thing. It's like the bush hat, that's a cool ass hat. It's a cool ass hat. It has history tied to it, just like the regular, the round brown does, being the World War campaign hat. It's like they're both cool ass hats. And at the end of the day, I had female drill sergeants in basic, and I had female drill sergeants at, in AIT. And guess what? Never once did I look at them and be like, well, I don't have to listen to what they say because they ain't got
because
a
their
brown
hat.
round on. Yeah, because their hat, it's like I got rolled in the dirt by them just like I did, the male drill sergeants. It was like, this is stupid. Why are you like, this is what you're focused on right now? This is effing crazy. It's crazy.
I have never been a fan, generally speaking, of our sergeants major of the Army. Just the ones that I've known, and I haven't personally known any of them. I just remember when I went out to the academy years ago, many moons ago, and he came to visit, and I think he was the new one at the time, or was just coming in. But anyway, I had just come back from deployment, and like his speech. Now, for those folks that make it to that level, they probably have not deployed in a while. Now, I can't speak for the current one, but most of them have been up there at headquarter level, MACOMs, whatever. And his whole thing was, and I actually agreed with his message, being in touch with your troops, being in touch with, knowing with, what their wants are, what their shortfalls are, things they need, that type of stuff. But he's lecturing us. And I took it personally because it's a smaller group. But I'm like, dude, I just came back from deployment with our guys. When was the last time you deployed? Like 15 years ago. Like, so yeah, dude, don't tell me to be in touch with my troops, because you're obviously not in touch with your troops. But that's a tangent. Going back to the high school thing and joining the military. One, it's not anecdotal. I mean, the fact is, you've got 5 folks out of 500. And I kind of broke down the numbers a little bit on text. Like, hey, out of the 500, 250 don't even qualify, right? That medically aren't going to qualify. And then out of that 250, you're going to have a percentage that is not going to score high enough on the ASVAB. Then you're going to have some folks that have law violations or whatever. But to put things in perspective, as a recruiter with my high school years ago, 500 kids, me personally, I would have expected to carry 5 to 10 seniors. That's just me. Um, when you look at the Navy would have carried another 5, 6. Air Force another 4 or 5. So I mean, reasonably speaking, because generally each service has one representative or one station, per high school. You'd probably say 20 at least 20. Maybe even 25, 30, just kind of depending or whatever. So the 5 is very low. Now, on the other side of that, one thing that has changed a lot that people don't realize, and this is the impact that I think you're going to see in your military influenced town versus out here, is post 9/11 GI Bill. Back in the day, we didn't have that. So the 9/11 GI Bill is what, pays for your college and that type of stuff. And they give you BAH, basic allowance for housing for your kids or your spouse if you transfer it. And so back in the day, we didn't have that, where you just had the Montgomery GI Bill and it just covered the service member. Then they made it so that you could transfer it and goes to your kids. Well, what I don't think, and maybe they did, maybe there's some smart folks out there that did consider it, but I don't think they looked at the impact that it's going to have on those military type towns where you normally count on a very high percentage of folks joining. Well, now they don't have to join, because 75% of your community there has post 9/11 GI Bill. It's passed it down to their kid and it's like, hey, you don't actually need to join the Army, Navy, Air Force, Marine Corps, because your college is paid for. And kind of like what we did with my boys, like, hey, you're going to college. I'm like, I did an extra 4 years for you to go to college to get paid, right?
That's right.
As well as you did, 4 plus.
Yep.
And one of our other listeners out there, Jim, I think he did a 4 plus to get,
Yep.
his kids. But it's like, I did this an extra 4 years to make sure that you can collect BAH and go to school for free, period. Now, after that, you want to come in the Army and do whatever, that's on you. Okay. But you're going to take advantage of this benefit and get the free college and the money. You're going to take care of that first, because I do believe in education. And it doesn't necessarily have to be college out there, folks. It could be trade schools or whatever. Okay. But you're going to take care of business first. It wasn't like back in the day where, okay, well, I had to join to get the free education. So I think, when you look at the impact that's going to have on recruiting in military towns, you're going to have a significant drop off. And dude, it's funny you say that, because I just thought about it as you were talking about it. I mean, you're going to see it's going to be double-digit decreases as far as high school seniors joining the military because of that reason. Because one of the motivators for joining the military is college. Okay. On the flip side of that, that means that you have to make up those numbers out here in the civilian community, and then, or those that aren't necessarily influenced or don't have a large military center of influence. But like you were saying, with some of their concerns, they are privy to a lot more nowadays than they were back in the day. I remember towards the end of my tour, they just started doing the internet chats. So the Army didn't do it yet because we're slow and very, very slow and just archaic, but the Air Force was already doing it. So you could get on there and you get on a little text chat with, an Air Force recruiter, and, hey man, what's the Air Force like, and this and that. And, you'd basically have somebody lying to you on a computer screen versus, just telling you, lies to your face. But nowadays kids can get on Facebook, they do their research, they see it in the news, they hear it, because it's like, and we'll get into this, we know we're going to get into the Trump indictment, but there is a fracture happening in this country, and it's not just among us old guys and gals, it's happening with our youth. I see it with my kids. I think when you start talking about the military with seniors in high school, you're starting to see it there, because what you're talking about is a distrust. There is a distrust in the system. There is a distrust in the government. Right now they might not take care of me. They don't believe that they're going to be taken care of by their leadership, and that they're not going to have their best interests at heart. as you get older, you get to our age, it's like, well, no, the government's probably going to kill me, you know, or or come try to take my guns or whatever the case is. But I do think that high school piece, you're seeing it's a snippet of a much broader picture. And as we get into the Trump piece there, the Trump indictment definitely does not help the cause. So I'm kind of switching gears here a little bit. I know mid range, so I'll get your final thoughts on that before we get into the Trump piece.
Yeah, no, and I didn't even think about the the college piece. Hey, I did 4 plus, plus 1 plus whatever, to make sure that my kids had, at least 12 months each of free college. And so, and that is a big motivator for a lot of, folks that join the military is, to get that college degree for free and get that skill, and and to get out. And so when when they already have that, that definitely takes motivator away. And I didn't even think about that.
Well, and that's two of the motivators, because education and money are two, at least back in my day, were two of the
Yeah,
motivators for people to join. And now
for
when you're
sure.
getting BAH, some of these kids are making $2,000 a month BAH and going to school for free. That's two
Yeah,
of the major motivators that's why people join.
yeah. No, that's a, and that's huge. But I also think you touched on a more important point, and we've talked about this a lot. Is these kids have grown up, and when they were growing up, it was, this country is racist. This country is terrible. The Constitution is racist. The founders were racist. There's systemic racism in every department, in every agency in this country. And the U.S. flag has been told, you don't have to stand up for the national anthem. You don't have to respect the flag. And then it's, hey, we want you to go join the military and wear this on your uniform every day. And you're like, well, you just told me for the last 18 years that this country's racist and that it's terrible and that it's oppressive. Why would I do that? And now you want me to join and go, possibly, potentially go die somewhere for it, and go die in Ukraine? Like, you serious? They didn't grow up with, the big red horde. They didn't grow up with the original Red Dawn. There was a common enemy. And now it's not. It's just, all they've seen is the country be denigrated for, however long, well, damn near their entire childhood. So
Which they wouldn't have cared about until somebody told them to care about it. I mean,
exactly.
we have a common acquaintance that we know. She doesn't listen, so I don't give a shit. But when they were talking about all the renamings and like, oh, this is be renamed at West Point and this that, and I was like, so when you were a plebe, did you actually even know who this person was, that their name on this building? And was that
No,
really a concern to you that they fought for the Confederacy or whatever? And it was just crickets. Of course not. You didn't
no.
say, dude. I'm 48 years old, and you know what? With the whole Fort Bragg, I mean, it was probably up about 4 years ago. I'm like, oh yeah, I guess that was actually named after a person. All I remember is getting smoked, doing a lot of PT. I mean, it's just like, hey, it's Fort Bragg, man. It's you jump out of airplanes. That's what we do.
I was, yeah, no, you're absolutely right. I was stationed at Bragg twice, and only until the whole issue came up after the St. George Floyd, uh, you know, mostly peaceful protest. I was like, oh shit, it's named after Braxton Bragg, and then I was like, I'm gonna have to go look that up because I don't know who that is. Like, I
Yeah,
legit didn't know who that was, and when I went and looked him up, it was like, okay, like, I don't care, because I was stationed here twice, and never once did I think about, who was this named after? I can't believe they named this after a Confederate. How the Greta Thunberg. How dare them? How dare them? And it was just like, I don't like. It's Fort Bragg. It's the epicenter of the army, and if you're not at Fort Bragg, you're not doing anything worthwhile. And so
yeah.
that was how I kind of
When you brought up
took
a very
everything.
good point with the flag thing, I didn't even tie that into recruiting. But you talk, when you look over the course of the last 3 years, 4 years, systemic racism, all the stuff that you just said, that these kids heard since they were 16, right? And now I'm just reiterating what you stated. I hadn't actually thought about it, but now it's like this kid who was 15, 16 years old has heard nothing for the last 3 or 4 years that we were a racist country, we suck. You sit for the flag, you don't have to stand for the national anthem. And it's like, hey, again, it's like they say, be careful who's watching, right? And it's
Yeah.
not the adults, it's the kids, and they were impressionable at that age. And then now you're like, I could have said it any better. Oh, you want me to go join and now wear that flag on my shoulder and go die in Ukraine? I do. It's well said.
Yeah. It's it's ridiculous. It's absolutely ridiculous. And then, you know, obviously, I don't have a crystal ball. I don't know what's going to happen, but could you imagine the civil unrest if we were to have a draft?
Oh, good lord.
Not even getting into the whole like, hey, by the way, women don't have to register with the selective service when they turn 18 like males do, which I'm, you know, deep down I'm glad for. The petty side of me is like, no, everybody should have to register for selective service when you turn 18. And that's what it is, because you want to be equal. Now we're equal. And I wonder, I wonder how many of these girls or women out here, pretending to be men. I wonder how many of them would revert back and be like, "Oh no, I'm a woman." Like, nope, I'm a woman. I'm not a male. It's like, no, you got to register with a selective service. You're a male, you got to register with selective service, because that has to go in every job application you ever fill out is your
Yep.
selective service number. And all of a sudden it'd be like, "Oh no, no, I'm a woman," But anyway, and so, but I think about this, the civil unrest that would happen if they came out and was like, "Okay, we have not met our recruiting goals, like we are way under strength," and China decides that they're going to go ahead and take Taiwan, or Putin decides that he's just going to start pushing red buttons in eastern Ukraine, and you're like, okay, guess what, these draft numbers, you're up. Dude, it
It would probably be a very sad event because I'm assuming that even with a draft, there is still some type of physical medical qualification you got to go through. And I'd be curious the numbers, man. Like, how many draftees do you go through to find one that actually qualifies?
But I'm gonna tell you right now, because we're all subject to recall. Well, I don't know if you're subject to recall after a
Yeah, but
certain time
normally,
period.
from what I've heard, and this could be anecdotal, but like once you make it past the 5 year mark, you're pretty much just the army figures you're
Yeah,
going to be a tub of shit and probably not worth bringing you back.
yeah. Yeah, I know on my DD-214, it's like, you're subject to recall until you're age 62 or whatever, the mandatory federal retirement age is. And I was like, bro, if it even got to the point where it was like, I might be recalled, I'm going to go find my local meth dealer and just be like, sorry, man. Sorry. I don't pass the drug test.
Answer the
I'm
door
a
with the
meth
pipe.
out. Yeah, exactly.
That reminds me, the first time when I was stationed at Bragg, I was a private, and I think it was Hurricane Andrews. One of the hurricanes came through, and we had cleanup, and it was a Saturday, and it was unscheduled, right? So it was a Saturday morning, and I had a roommate staying in the barracks. Man, they set me up. Or actually, he didn't set me up; he just didn't inform me. So I'd been there for like 2 weeks, and the hurricane comes through or whatever, and then it was like 7 o'clock on Saturday morning. Um, Somebody starts beating on the barracks door. I'm like, what the heck? Well, my buddy, my roommate there, I still remember his name, Smith, grabbed an empty beer bottle. I did not open the door. They're like, yeah, we're doing hurricane cleanup. We need you in there. And Smith's like, sorry, man, been drinking. Now, this is like 7 o'clock in the morning, right? He's like, sorry, man, been drinking. He looked at me like, nope, well, you haven't been drinking. Come with me. I was like, man, So I think for like, it was at least like the next 5 years, I always had like 2 or 3 empty beer bottles just kind of sitting around just in case.
That's right. Let's do it, man. That's one of those. That's one of those old school tricks. It's like
They
leaving
learned me.
your,
They learned me.
leaving your an extra beret and extra set of keys on your desk.
Yeah.
They'd be like, "Where's so and so at? Oh, his headgear's here. He's here somewhere." You know. So, yeah. So I know you. I'll throw it back out to. I know you want to talk the Trump indictment. So what you got? I did not read the indictment. I did not. I've been loosely following it. Large part because I'm exhausted on it. I'm just exhausted on it all, and it's all nonsense. But if you got, I think you said you read the indictment and you got some particulars you wanna hit, man. Feel free.
Yeah, I think and I'm like you. I mean, you get exhausted by it, and that's everybody covers it, and the ad nauseum, and it is a big deal. basically because of the actions that have taken place. But one of the other networks, they were actually talking today about it's like, hey, if this thing carries out for the next X amount of months, are voters even going to care? Because you just get so tired of it, you just tune it out, right? Um, and it'll be interesting to see how it plays out. And kind of give you my thoughts up front, and then I'll get into the charges because I read through the indictment. Um, there's some things in there that, and again, with indictments, it's like they said, you can indict a ham sandwich, right? I forget who said that, but with the indictment, you're only seeing one piece. You're seeing the side from the prosecutor. You're not seeing the defense side. So that's one thing. And you know what? I don't know if he's guilty or innocent. There's some charges in there, and there's some things in there that are in the indictment that are going to be problematic. Number one, obstruction charges. Dude, the government is going to find that you obstructed. I mean, unlimited resources with everything that they have the power to do, they can find every man, woman, and child guilty of obstruction of justice if they want to do that. That is not difficult. That is going to be a problem for him, just because of the low threshold. But the other piece is the nuclear information. I don't know. I'm not privy to what nuclear information he had or whatever, but a lot of this is hinged on the fact that Donald Trump declassification process that Donald Trump could have declassified it in office, didn't necessarily have to tell anybody. There's not really a formalized process. It's he said, she said. Can you convict on that? That'd be tough. The problem that comes in my mind, and this is just me, is the nuclear piece, because depending on the nuclear information that's there, the president cannot unilaterally declassify nuclear information. I think that changed during the Kennedy years, if I'm not mistaken. I think during the Kennedy years, they came out and said, hey, it's actually got to go to Congress. And I don't know all the ins and outs of it, but it's basically a joint decision with congressional leaders and the president and probably DOD and some other folks to declassify nuclear information. Because other than that, while you're the president, you can declassify what you want. It doesn't matter
Yep.
what it is. And it doesn't matter what level it is. And I hate to break this down to you. I've read the executive orders. There's no formalized process. Now, NARA and all these other guys can come up with whatever, but a lot of that the president's not subject to. Okay, they can just say, "Yeah, this is it." And what typically happens, what happened at that case is this is declassified. Then it's on the security classification guides to go back and update themselves. Those folks that manage that to update that with the new guidance, right? And that's just the way it works. I mean, everybody. I love seeing it on Twitter when folks are, he can't do this and that. And I'm like, no, actually, he can. Have you read the executive order? Like, yeah, he can, with the exception of nuclear. So that in my mind, obstruction is going to be a big problem. Nuclear information is going to be a big problem. Reading this thing, it's and again, everybody knows that I've been a Trump guy and still support a lot of his policies and stuff like that. Trying to remove that, I think I texted earlier today after I read this. This is such a huge waste of time and money, and it is so clear that it's politically motivated. Not that anybody doubted that, right? I mean, Biden. I
Sure.
love when everybody's like, well, it's not Biden's DOJ. Yeah, actually, it is. He appointed
Yeah.
the attorney general. It's his administration. Like, you don't think they talk? He's the head attorney, the chief law enforcement officer, right, with the FBI and the AG, and you don't think he talks to them? Like, really? But anyway, so 37 counts brought. So I'll read these and then kick it over to you for your thought. Counts 1 through 37, willful retention of national defense information. Those are the first 31 counts, right? So basically, he had national defense information at the House. I read into a little bit of the Presidential Records Act. I need to dig into the weeds a little bit more because my interpretation of it's a little bit different than what I'm reading, or at least what I'm hearing. Because when I read the Presidential Records Act, and again, I didn't dig through it, but it was really more or less talking about like personal. The intent behind it was like memoirs,
Right.
diaries, right? Things that you do that may not necessarily be in official capacity, that hey becomes a matter of public record, or at least to the archives, because you were the president of the United States at the time, right? So everybody wants the button off George Washington's coat, and then you want a love letter from Thomas Jefferson that he signed or something like that, right? Not necessarily that he was doing that in the course of duties, but it's the fact that he was the president and he signed something and whatever. So I don't see a lot of this falling under that what I'm hearing from his defense attorneys, but counts 1 through 31, willful retention of national defense information. Um, I think he can actually beat all of those. I really do. Now, again, I don't know where the nuclear falls into that. That could be a problem. Count 32, it's only one, conspiracy to obstruct justice. Count 33, withholding a document or record. Count 34, corruptly concealing a document or record. Count 35, concealing a document in a federal investigation. Count 36, scheme to conceal. Count 37, false statements and representations. This is what we call stacked charges, right? You committed one crime or allegedly committed one crime, and because you committed that one crime, you actually broke 5 or 6 different laws. Not that you took 5 or 6 different actions, but you took five. There are 5, 6 or 6 different laws that you would have violated by committing that crime. And a lot of what I read in the indictment, there is the obvious, the documents. Okay, that's there, but he's not the only one indicted. Okay, there were other folks because I think his it wasn't his chief of, and maybe he was promoted to his chief of staff, but one of the other guys, they're looking at him because he was the one who transported a lot of this stuff,
Yeah.
right? So, when I read the indictment, like when you look at actual charges to Trump, it was very small. It was a lot of this is what Trump said before, everybody's held accountable, nobody's above the law, yada 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 yada. But he's like, hey, he had some docs. It didn't really say what he gave up or what he didn't give up. A lot of the other person, I can't remember his name. It's in here somewhere. Them moving documents and a lot of conversations, and even when they had this snippet with one of his attorneys at the time, I forget what they use. I have to find it when you're talking, but it's not even a direct quote or a recording of what the attorney said. It was, well, basically, this is the gist of what the attorney's saying, or this is the gist of what the attorney said Trump said. Right? I mean, like,
Yeah.
come on, dude. I mean, I can't believe we're wasting the time and money on this, and especially with some of these things we're talking about, like the Espionage Act. Like, seriously, it's like whatever, dude. It pisses me off.
So when I saw that they were going to, charge him under the Espionage Act, and for those who may not be familiar with it, so it's Title 18 U.S. Code is 793. All right, so that's espionage. Very few people are convicted of espionage in the United States because espionage is incredibly difficult to prove. Especially if you have someone who just has possession of classified documents, even if they have an unlawful possession of classified documents, espionage is very hard to prove because you have to prove intent, right? And that's where the espionage part comes into play. You have to prove beyond a reasonable doubt that they intended, to share those documents with a foreign power. Or somebody who's not authorized to have access to them with the intent to harm the United States. Very difficult to prove unless you have that person on tape, saying, "I'm going to give these to to Putin, so he can beat us and the arms race or whatever." Um, and so, but for the declassification, you're absolutely right. There's not a process to declassify something. Two things have to happen. One, an authorized official. All right. So, what constitutes an authorized official? Really, an original classification authority. And we've covered this before. When this first popped up I think end of last year on an episode or something, we ran through the various executive orders that cover all this. So, you guys can get in the Wayback Machine and go check that out. So, you have to have an authorized official who has determined that this information no longer needs protecting. Who's an authorized official? An OCA, like we said, for the executive branch, which the executive branch owns all the classified information in the United States government. The chief executive, aka the president of the United States, can declassify anything they want to outside of like Roger pointed out, the nuclear stuff, which there's is a little bit more nuanced. But other than that, it could be top secret, and then you could have all the handling caveats afterwards. They can declassify it. The second thing that they must do to declassify something after they have determined that it no longer requires protection is communicate that is now declassified. It doesn't specify how that communicado has to go. It doesn't say it has to be written in memorandum submitted 30 days to whoever. It just says they have to communicate that it's no longer classified. And so if when Trump says, well, I said it was no longer classified, then okay, he made the decision this no longer requires protection, and he communicated that it was no longer protected. That's all he has to do. That's it. And that is no longer classified information. And so I think that is going to be very difficult to get him on. That is going to be very difficult. But like you said,
There is one document that they claim in the indictment that he shows that he's like, when I was president, I can declassify this, but and this is where the Presidential Records Act comes in. But now I'm not president, so I can't declassify. So he obviously had some classified info that they apparently have a transcript that he admits to, right? In all fairness,
yeah. Well, yeah, and if they have that and
a
he's,
document,
yeah, a
a
document
document.
and he said that, then he's dumb for saying that. You know, what he needs is the law. You seen those two guys on Twitter when it's shut the F up Friday?
Yeah,
They're like, when
yeah,
you're stopped by the police, they ask you like, why did you pull me over? Am I being detained or am I free to go? And they're like, what do you do after that? You shut the F up. Shut the F up Friday. And that's where Trump gets himself in trouble on a lot of things is,
yes.
dude, just shut up and let your attorney speak for you. Stop, you know, truthing or whatever on True Social and just shut up and let your attorneys handle this. So again, the obstruction charges, like you said, that's super easy because anything can be obstruction. You know, you could any of us, they could come back and say, you obstructed justice and paying your last speeding ticket or whatever.
Hey, you didn't let us in. We
Yeah,
rang the doorbell. You're like, hey, obstruction of justice. I mean, it's
exactly.
simple as that.
Yeah, so those are going to be pretty easy to get them on, and then you still have that the grand jury out in Georgia,
Yeah.
right now. My question on this, and I mean, I know why, but it was. Do you think, let's say, the stars align in 2024, the GOP takes back the Oval Office, the Senate, and keeps the House? Do you think they stand up a grand jury somewhere to indict Hillary for processing classified information on an unauthorized server in her non-skiff bathroom?
No, because the GOP is a bunch of pussies. I mean, everybody's angry because Andy Biggs, my representative, actually tweeted something like, and I'm paraphrasing, but he's like, "This means war," and I agree with him because here's the thing, man. They are going to do, and dude, they lost me right after the Russia collusion. Oh yeah, we kind of lied about all that, and we just kind of made that up, and we violated a lot of rights. That's fine, but and again, we've gone through thousands of, or not thousands, but several, government operations over the course of the last several decades. After the Russia collusion thing, I was like, "Yep, I'm tapped out. I'm done." It's like now it's just all political. But the GOP, they're showing up to a gunfight with a knife, and it's like, and especially now, if I'm the GOP and I'm in the House, I'm giving subpoenas to everybody, including President Biden, including him. Because especially now when Chuck and this, I'm waiting to see how this plays out because you have Chuck Grassley, the senator from Iowa. He made a claim, and this was pretty big, but it was carried on Fox News, but nowhere else, that a Burisma executive who allegedly paid $5 million in a Biden bribery scheme maintained audio recordings of calls with the family as an insurance policy. And if I'm not mistaken, I think he said it was something like 17 recordings.
Yep.
Okay. Those need to hit the street. Like, okay, that's great. You just told me that, Chuck. Play it.
Exactly.
Contact Elon and put that crap all over Twitter. You're going to have to force the DOJ's hand, which they're not going to do anything anyway, right? Because it is Biden's DOJ. But you're going to have to force their hand. I'd put that all over Twitter. But the thing is, you've got some of the Republicans that look like, I think Comer, he looks like he's ready to go after it. You've got Biggs who's ready to go after it. And then you got the guys like, the Mitt Romneys out there. Well, again, these are the guys and gals that are showing up to the gunfight with a knife. And it's like, hey, the Democrats are bringing guns to this fight. Like, you need to fight fire with fire, or they're just going to steamroll you. I mean, it makes no sense to me. It's like, how many times are you going to get kicked in the balls, man, before you start wearing a cup and start kicking back, right? And I'm waiting to see, because I have respect for Chuck Grassley, old as dirt, but he tends to be, obviously a conservative, but he tends to be fairly objective and pretty straightforward things. And with this stuff here, like I want to see it, dude. And with that right there, I would subpoena everybody. They're already subpoenaing Devin. What's his last name? The
Nunez.
business. No, is it
Oh,
Devin Carter or whatever his name
yeah,
is?
yeah, yeah.
So he's supposed to be on the Hill on Friday. I would subpoena Hunter Biden. I'd subpoena his, Joe's brother, and I would subpoena the president. And you know what they would say? This is unprecedented. Well, yeah, so is what you're doing to President Trump. So if you're going to play these games, then let's play these games, and make you come out in public. And oh, by the way, on a side note, then you got KJP who, this is great, talks about all that. Well, I can't discuss this because of the Hatch Act. And then they actually, the ethics office just found that she violated the Hatch Act by using the term like mega MAGA or whatever it was,
Yeah.
because it's a political term. And I love their little write up. Well, we don't feel that we need to take disciplinary actions with this one. We're just going to warn her. Okay. And not that I think they should have done, gone farther than that or whatever, but there is definitely a different set of rules. And I encourage folks out there, now don't get me wrong. There are some things in there that Trump has probably done wrong. When you look at the indictments, there's probably some truth in there. There always is. But you say, is it to the point where you would actually arrest a former president who was also the leading candidate for the 2024 election at this time? Is it to the point where you actually indict him and arrest him and charge him? Is that to the point? Because at that point, using Josh's terms, at that point you live in a banana republic. This is what communist nations do, or countries that are leaning that way. This is what they do. You start to arrest your political opponents. And then on another note, I'd like your opinion on this. If I am the Biden administration looking at 2024, I'm more scared of DeSantis than I am Trump. And I'm more scared of DeSantis because you've already beat Trump in an election. Okay. Call it what it is, good, bad, indifferent, whatever, but you have already beat Donald Trump in a national election. You haven't beat a Ron DeSantis. And I think Ron DeSantis definitely brings something different to the table, where he's going to bring a lot of those Trump policies, but his demeanor, his disposition is going to be a little bit more level. But that brings another thing. It's like, do you think, is it, the fact that they're going after Trump outside of, is it just pure hatred, or do you think they're actually scared that Trump could beat him in a runoff, in a reelection?
So I don't think that they're scared that Trump can beat them in a runoff, an election, because I mean, until the GOP fixes mail-in voting, the the fix is in. They're not really that worried about Trump. Um, what they are doing, and granted, this is just not the left that's doing this to Trump. This is the
Oh yeah.
establishment.
Oh yeah.
This is I mean, the Mitch McConnells and Lindsey Grahams. Guess what? They're in on this. They are just as much a part of this as everybody else. Trump is. It didn't have to be Trump. It could have been any other outsider. This is the establishment showing outsiders, you will not come in and mess up our cash cow. You will not come in and you are not allowed in our club. It goes back to George Carlin. It's like it's one big old club and you ain't in it.
You ain't in it.
And so this is just the establishment showing outsiders, you will not come in and mess it up. And so I don't think they're scared of Trump. Again, like you said, they beat him. They know that Trump cannot win independent voters. Trump is not going to probably not going to win women voters. So they are more scared of DeSantis because and they know that DeSantis has he needs to figure out how to connect with young people, but they are terrified of DeSantis. That's why they came out early on, and it was either the Washington Post or the New York Times was like, DeSantis is worse than Trump. And you're like, the dude hadn't even declared yet. Like, and this was this was last year. In fact, I think this was during his last gubernatorial election. They're like, DeSantis is worse than Trump. And that started the media, portraying Santis as, basically Hitler. Well, he's worse than Hitler. He's worse than Trump because Trump was Hitler. Now DeSantis is Hitler. Oh, wait, hold on. They can't both, this worse.
He
It's
can't
just
both
like,
be Hitler.
exactly. And you're like, God, like, what in the world is happening here? But they're afraid of DeSantis, and DeSantis actually, there was a couple of Twitter accounts that generally skew a little left, but they even commented DeSantis. It was the DeSantis War Room, or somebody put out that's associated with DeSantis put out. It was like they were going to start looking at moving federal agencies outside of the District of Columbia, and it was like, wow. And even some of the ones on the left, they're like, that would be horrific for Democrats.
Oh yeah.
If some of those got pushed outside the district, namely the Department of Justice. Because when you start, I mean, dude, if you're a conservative, or if you're part of the GOP and there's a grand jury that is put together inside the District of Columbia, you're done. You are done.
Or New York,
Or New
Alvin
York,
Bragg, right? Yeah,
yeah,
absolutely.
but you're done. And so they're like, they put out there like, hey, Ron DeSantis would take a look at moving some of these federal agencies out of Washington, D.C. Department of Agriculture, guess what? You're going to Omaha. You are going to be closer to the people
Yes.
that, grow
Hey,
shit.
they ain't growing crops in Anacostia.
Exactly. Yeah. The only thing they're growing in Anacostia is weed, you know? And so that actually but there was other people that chimed in. They're like, that's actually not a bad idea. That's a really good idea. And I remember, at one point, I don't know if it was Trump that floated it, or, but I mean, that came up, a couple of years ago. I think during the Trump administration was like they were looking at, cutting some of these federal agencies, cutting them out of, you know, Washington, D.C. And it's not a terrible idea, but DeSantis is putting out policies. Hey, here's what I would do on day one. Here's what I would do, day 100. Here's what, here's my plan. And what is Trump tweeting about, or, truthing about, whatever? About he's still going on about how the 2020 election was stolen. And you're like, brother, but you're not helping yourself right now. He's going to get a bump. He got a bump for the indictment in the polls again. But again, there's a lot of people who are like, oh yeah, man, I'm MAGA all the way, baby. They're going to go in that voting booth and they're going to vote for DeSantis, and they're just not going to tell anybody. And there's some people that I think there's some people, some fence sitters, and even a few that are the Joe Manchin type Democrats. They're going to walk in that voting booth and they're going to vote for DeSantis and just not tell anybody. Oh yeah, I totally voted for Biden, because Biden is gone. Like, I mean, that guy is a complete. He is a complete disaster. But my question so my question to you and anybody else out there, that is listening, why did Trump had this information? So he's saying that the information they came down and took back from Mar-a-Lago was all the Crossfire Hurricane stuff, right? That showed how it was a Hillary campaign concocted plan. Obama knew, Biden knew, everybody was in on it. Blah blah. Why did Trump not declassify this, and then on his last day in office, dump it onto social media, dump it into one of these reporters that would put it out there for everybody to see? Why did he not do that? Because if he would have done that, I don't think he would be in the position he's in now on some of this stuff.
That's a great question. And I think, it goes all the way back to like even the documents that he had. We talked about that before. It's like, hey, if you think I found something in my house, you think I'm reporting that? Nope. That's getting shredded. That's going in the burn. I'm burning that out there right now. Nope. Never had anything. Okay. Not that I've ever had anything, but if I did, I'm not pulling a Mike Pence. Like, hey man, I'm just getting rid of it. I think he had some very bad advisors. And I do think there is some, you got to remember, I mean, Trump is a politician now, and he did serve his 4 years, but he doesn't necessarily have that government expertise that a lot of us have, and a lot of our listeners that have been in this system. But it's you've said it before. I think he surrounded himself. I think he had some really good hires, but I think he had some really bad advisors. And I think he had some bad hires as well. But I think there were some folks that were giving him advice that didn't have his best interests at heart. Probably more of the establishment, and then that's what scares me the most is you are truly fighting the establishment. You've got people that are supposed to be on your side, quote unquote, uh, that are not there to help you out. They are there to keep the status quo. And you know what? I mean, maybe the dude's a little bit mental because, I'm like you, dude. It's like you look at criminals and stuff like that all the time. Not saying he's a criminal one way or another, but I'm just like, man, why would look at Nixon, the Nixon tapes, right?
Yeah.
Dude, I don't know what you're talking about. Search whatever you want. I don't have anything. That's exactly what's going to happen, right? You're just going to, like you did, delete it. I mean, you're not going to find any of that stuff. So he could have taken actions then, could have declassified. I think he had people tell him, well, the stability of the country, yada, 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 probably, some crap like that. These are all the people that are going to be impacted. You don't want to do that. Here's how it's going to look for you in the polls if you do that. And then, if you take the stuff, hey, dude, digitize all that, throw it in a BitLocker somewhere, and nobody will find it. They talk about he kept the stuff in the bathroom. Well, that was this other guy that was moving stuff around, all his help. They were looking for more office space down there at Mar-a-Lago, and so that's what they did. They had to move the boxes from one of the offices and they stored it in the bathroom, right? So again, there's other players in there, but it's like, dude, why do you even have all this stuff down here? It's like, digitize it, put it on a thumb drive, throw it in your, like Clinton did, throw it in your sock drawer. And you know what? The minute somebody starts sniffing around, yeah, I'm destroying that thing. Blenders work, right? I mean, it worked for Hillary. I mean, you can't even piece that crap back together. So, dude, I don't know. I mean, it's mind boggling to me. And a lot of that, I think you hit on the head. There's a lot of stuff that he's bringing out on his own. And I'll be curious to see if he continues to hurt himself going farther and farther into this indictment as we get to the trial. On the DeSantis thing, here is the big, and I heard him say this, and I tweeted or I texted you guys this the other day, and this is, I wish he would go more down this line. Because the biggest factor that would make me vote for DeSantis over Trump right now at this point, and again, I think DeSantis is playing this smart. I get what the polls are saying. He came out and defended Trump without really defending Trump. It was pretty much like, hey, here's how the federal government's going to go after you, common American citizen. I think that was very wise. And I think for DeSantis, it's smart. And this may be doubling back on a little bit what I said in a previous episode, but I think it's kind of smart to let it play itself out because you may not necessarily have to go to war with Trump depending on how this indictment plays out. But the biggest factor that would really make me consider DeSantis over Trump is 2 terms versus 1. That's huge. That's huge in my eyes because I think DeSantis can win an election and I think he can win a re-election. And so then you say, hey, the incumbent president, generally speaking, has a huge leg up going into a re-election. And you say, hey, Biden's pretty weak, man. I mean, there are a lot of people out there, I think, that can beat Biden right now. A lot of folks that normally wouldn't have a shot. And, we talked about, one of your favorites, Romney. Romney could win an election right now. I mean, that's the thing. As much as I hate to say it, Romney could win the election just because he would pull enough independents and he'd pull enough of those people that are slightly on the left. Heaven forbid that ever happens. But, when I look at Ron DeSantis, it's like, okay, if Trump wins, we're going to go through this all over again in 4 years. Well, from 2024, right?
Yeah.
But DeSantis, I mean, you're going to get 4 years and then you're going to have an incumbent president that's typically speaking, generally speaking, historically speaking, is very, very hard to beat. And I would like to see DeSantis beat that drum a little bit louder.
Yeah, I remember you texted that, and I think that's a great point because I can't even remember how old DeSantis is. I think he's mid-40s. So, I mean, when was the last time? Well, I guess it'd probably be JFK. When was the last time we had a president that was under 50
Yeah,
years
no kidding.
under 50 years old? Man, it was yeah. I think it had to have been JFK. Um, so I think it's a great point. DeSantis,
He's
hey, I
44,
can.
dude.
Oh, dude. Like, so 2024, like, so let's say he'll, I don't know when his birthday is, but let's say he's 46. Man, he gets those 4. He could do 2 terms and only be 54 years old. Like, that guy, yeah, he would be one of the youngest
I
presidents.
mean, how old was Bush?
W?
Yeah.
W had to have been in his 50s. Or wait, no. He might have been late 40s, I think. I don't know.
Age in 2001, he was 55. So yeah, so he was a little bit older.
Okay, yeah. So he's a little bit older. Yeah, DeSantis is young, and I mean I do think you look at Trump. Trump can't do two more. Well, he can't do another term. He can't do two more terms anyway because he already got
Barry
one. But
was Barry Soetoro was 48 when he was elected.
okay, so
So, but yeah, but
DeSantis
still
definitely a
later
couple
than
years.
yeah,
The I mean, Joe Biden does it. I read something to where Newsom has been to the White House a few times recently. So I don't know if part of that is, they're going and talking about the plan, for Biden to step aside, at the end of this year and say, hey, like you predicted, hey, I got to step down, and then it's a race between Newsom and DeSantis. It's going to, I tell you, a lot of DeSantis, obviously, we talked about the young people connecting with them, but DeSantis is going to have to, his running mate choice has got to be on point. It has to
that's
be
going
on
to be
point.
critical.
He can't come out and pull a John McCain and pick some crazy ass running mate, like Sarah Palin. You're like, what? Um, he's got to make a very very smart choice on his running mates. And to be quite honest, there's not a lot out there. There's not a lot out there to pick from. Now, if it might have been Luke that mentioned this, if you want to just flip the Monopoly board over, come out and pick Joe Manchin as your running mate,
Yeah,
dude.
that would be there would be some pissed off people.
Dude, heads would explode. Like heads would absolutely explode all around on both sides. A DeSantis Mansion ticket. I personally, I'd be first in line to vote for that. I would be first in line to vote for that. For those two, a very, very, very moderate dim, and and somebody who isn't afraid to go after people and get things done. Uh, yeah, I think that'd be a hell of a ticket. It'll never happen.
Makes too much sense. And Manchin, I mean, it would make sense because Manchin's getting towards the end of his career one way or another, right?
Yep.
It looks like he's going to have a pretty tough challenge running for Senate again. So you say, well, does the guy, there was talks of presidential aspirations, but I mean, dude, you never say never. I mean, it could be something that DeSantis throws out there. I need that moderate dim. I know I got to get independent voters because at the end of the day, and I think you hit some of it on the head. Most of your conservative voters, it's like whatever. Okay, you're a Trump supporter or whatever, but hey, make no mistake about it. If DeSantis is on the ticket, that's who I'm voting for. Okay, if we get
Yeah.
to the general election, he's on the ticket. I'm voting for his electors. That's it. Period. And you pull a guy like Manchin in there, it's like you might pull a lot of independent voters, and you might pull a lot of those folks that lean slightly left. I mean, to me, it would be a brilliant move. I don't know if Manchin would ever go for it, but career wise, it makes sense for him. Manchin's not going to win a presidential election, but you
No.
know what? VP and you're that's interesting. VP and you're side by side with good old Ron there, dude. You get a lot of votes, and you know what? At that point, it wouldn't even matter what the polls said. I mean, I understand you got to get through primaries and stuff like that, so there is a factor there, but it really wouldn't matter because your conservatives are going to vote for Ron DeSantis. They're
Yep.
going to vote for whomever um, the candidate is. But you're going to get a lot of independent voters, and you get a lot of those folks that lean slightly left that you're probably not going to necessarily capture in the polls.
Yeah. There was a couple of others today that I saw. I don't know if you saw the Joe Biden's the pedo party that they had
Oh yeah,
at the White House, and you had those influencers showing off, the dude who thinks he's a woman showing off his fake breast, and then the woman who thinks she's a dude showing her chest, her chest surgery where she had her breast removed, and they were taking their shirts off, dancing around the White House lawn, and there were children present. So I mean, it got so bad. The White House even had to come out and say, "Yeah, we don't, we didn't approve of that. They're no longer welcome
who
to be
who
at the
would have
White
seen
House."
that coming? Hmm.
Right? And you're like, and this is why Ron DeSantis banned pride parades, because for whatever reason, you people can't keep your clothes on. I don't know why that is. Like, why is that? there's no like you have Veterans Day parades, you have Memorial, you have all these other parades from all these other demographics. You're the only one that can't keep your clothes on. Why is that? I don't understand that. Maybe some of our listeners out there, can help us out with that. And there was some folks on on social media today. Even they were like, "Yeah, no, can't have that done with this administration." You know, and those were folks who openly voted for Biden. But they were like, "Yeah, no." At the end of the day, and it goes back to what we were talking about, kind of with with the suits and stuff like that. It's like at the end of the day, like whether you like to who's occupying that or not, that house or not, like that's the White House. Like that is
Right.
there's a certain level of decorum, that should be there. That place should have. And granted, you got Bill and Monica in there, in the Oval Office, having some cigars and stuff. But and then
I did
JF
not have
pretty
sexual relations
yeah,
with that woman.
and then JFK's hooking up with Marilyn Monroe, in there and whatever, right? So there's always going to be there's always going to be some shenanigans, and I mean, if I was in there, I'd probably be doing keg stands, off there, and
You'd
I'd
be like, what
probably
is that? Who's the prime minister? Is it a Finland or whatever? The chick, that's
yeah.
me pictures at
Yeah, I'd be
all the
like, "Come have your
parties and
next party
everything.
here." Yeah. So, dude, yeah, there would be some, there would be some craziness. I wouldn't be doing what Bill or JFK did, but there would definitely be some craziness. I'm probably going to hotbox, possibly the Lincoln bedroom. I'm definitely jumping on the bed, right? I'm definitely jumping on the bed at least once. Um,
As long as you're in a suit and tie, though, it's fine.
as long as you're in a suit and tie, right? But and so I think even that, and they even came, they had to come out and say, okay, yeah, we condemn that, and they banned those people from ever attending the another thing at the White House again. But you know that you have somebody a moderate like Joe Manchin come out, people are going to vote for that. People who won't vote for Joe Biden, they're Democrats, they're going to be like, I'd vote for Manchin. I vote for Manchin, and I say that personally. If it comes down to where it was, I got to vote for let's say I got to vote for Joe Manchin or Joe Biden. It's not going to happen. But look at that, dude. I'm voting for Manchin all day long. If I got to vote for Joe Manchin or Mitt Romney, I'm probably voting for Joe Manchin.
Yeah, that would be a close one. It makes me wonder though. Is Manchin to the Democrats what Romney is to the Republicans for us? Yeah,
I,
think about that.
I think
Maybe.
here's a problem, right? We only see, I think a lot of people since 2016, maybe even a little bit before, maybe Obama's second term. I think a lot of people either lie about who they're voting for,
Hell yeah.
right? And then on top of that, a lot of people just aren't gonna. They're just. We only hear the loudest voices. All right. So on social media, you only hear these people who are hard left, hard right. Very few moderates out there in the social media sphere. And so you hear those and you're like, oh, well, the Democrats, they all hate Joe Manchin because, Joe Manchin's, blocked this bill or, voted the wrong way on that bill and stuff. And I think people look at that and they say, well, all the Democrats hate Joe Manchin. Well, I can tell you a lot of Southern Blue Dog Democrats who don't hate Joe Manchin. They like Joe Manchin, you know. Hey, obviously West Virginia Democrats, and that's a very Democrat state because it's, especially with the coal miners, very union,
Blue collar.
yeah, it's very blue collar, but it's very unionized. And there's a a lot of sway there, Democrat sway there. Obviously, they don't hate Joe Manchin.
Well, and
Um,
he fits, he's that perfect plug for all the spectrums, right? Because you talked about the unions, and then you talk about also the energy sector, fossil
yeah,
fuel, blue collar. I mean, he brings, and that's why I think with that independent voter, he brings a lot of folks from a lot of, obviously your fossil fuel folks are going to be conservative. Your union guys and gals are going to be, liberal. Your blue
yeah,
collar, you like that Southern Democrat you're talking about. I mean, he brings a lot of folks from a lot of different demographics.
yeah. You're getting those and those and those old Southern Democrats, blue collar man. You're getting those. They're voting for Joe Manchin's. They don't hate Joe Manchin. but at all. What they do hate, because even, and even my dad, for a while, my dad was a Southern Democrat. Um, but one of the things that is, a lot of Southern Democrats don't approve of is shit that like happened at the White House, on the White House lawn, where there's kids presents and you're pulling your junk out. Like they will not support that. And so I think the mail-in voting issue aside, I think 2024, you're going to see a lot of people that are going to be like, oh yeah, DeSantis is Hitler, he's worse than Hitler, and then they're going to go in that booth and they're going to be like, they want to molest, the left wants to molest little kids. They're like, I'm voting for DeSantis.
And the bad thing about it is my final thought on it. Biden doesn't support any of that crap. He doesn't. Biden truly doesn't support any of that, but he's letting everybody else run that administration except for himself. So his
Exactly.
advisors are pushing whatever agenda they want to push, because especially at his age, trust me, and you go back and people can look on C-SPAN and History Channel, look at, his voting record and some of his speeches and this, that. He is 180 where he was 20, 25 years ago. And it's because it's not him. That dude is a bowl of oatmeal upstairs.
Yeah. Yeah. He is not the one minding the store for sure. He's being told, sign this, you're going to do that. Whoever's running, like his Twitter account, dude, he is not tweeting that shit at all. So yeah, no, it's Biden's not minding the store. It's the KJPs and some other folks that are running all that stuff, pushing policies. So
So what, you don't believe that he's running his Twitter account?
that dude doesn't even know what Twitter is, let alone type it out, because the tweets coming out of that account, I mean, they're coherent, right? I mean, as far as grammar and stuff like that, like it's they're legit. That guy could not tweet that. He could not tweet that. I don't even think that dude has a. He probably doesn't even have a smartphone. They probably don't even let him near that. Dude, they are not letting Joe Biden near an account. The only reason that they let him near a microphone now is because he's president and they can't keep him away from it. If he was still vice president, it'd be like Barry. It'd be like, just keep his ass away from a microphone.
It'd be like us, drunk tweeting in the middle of the night after I've had a couple glasses of bourbon. Like, you know what? About time me tell the American people what I really think.
That's right.
Like, nah.
Let me tell you something about you that you don't know. Yeah, faux show. So yeah, that's my final thought on that.
Well, we got to an episode without Luke, so I'll kick it back to you for the closeout. But I will give my shout out to Luke. Do you think he'll actually listen to the episode?
No, no, we could have spent this entire episode talking trash about him, and he never would have known until like one of the listeners post in the Slack channel or like post on social media. They'd be like, "Oh, dude, I can't believe Josh said that about you, Luke." And Luke be like, "What?" And then he would be forced to go back to listen to the episode, but he's not going to listen to this. And if he does, he damn sure is not making it to the end of it.
No, he'll be that 15-second listener. So, you got any shout outs?
No, not this time. No shout outs. I've dedicated myself to the next episode. I'm going to sit down and I'm going to write out my shout outs. That way, next episode, I can make sure that, I recognize some folks.
Well, the major thing that I have is we got a lot of folks, a lot of acquaintances, a lot of family, a lot of friends that are going through a lot of medical issues. Hey, thoughts and prayers out to all of you. Unfortunately, you get to our stage in life. Not that we're getting too old, but we're getting to the age where folks around us are getting sick, and a lot of times it's our parents. It could be our siblings and other folks that we've known, growing up. But our thoughts and prayers go out to each and every one of you. Just have faith, keep the faith, and good things will happen. So with that being said, hey, thanks for listening. Thanks for your time. Keep your canteen cups tightly secured and full of some good whiskey or whatever you decide to drink, except for Bud Light.